What's up everybody? I hope you are doing well today. It's 4 o'clock in the morning here and I'm getting ready to give you guys another installment of the arrow testing series. Now a little bit of background for people who have not been following along this far. This all started with a little curiosity of mine about arrow performance out of my bow and what it's doing downrange and at different weights. So initially I decided to take a whole bunch of arrows and shoot them through a chronograph, and that gave me this chart right here. Now this is a chart of arrow weight versus velocity out of my bow. With this chart, I was able to take all of the arrow weights, all of the velocities, and plug them into Archer's Advantage and look at all of the downrange data. And that leads me to today's video. I've been building my arrows for as long as I can remember, and for as long as I can remember, I've also been weight sorting my arrows and components. Now, there's just something that feels good about being able to say that this dozen of arrows is plus or minus 0.1 grains. But does the accuracy return on my time investment actually make sense? Now this is what I set out to figure out today. But first, like I said, this is a series. So if you have not been following along to this point, I encourage you to click right up here and go check out the other videos in the series. So to start with, whenever I weight sorted my arrows, I always had this very nice spreadsheet that allowed me to do it as fast as I could. With this spreadsheet, I had data of the last batch that I sorted, so I had mins and maxes of all my components. When I took the mins of all of these components, I was able to find that the minimum weight I would have in that arrow batch could have been 354 grains. Next, I took the max of all these components and I found that the max I could have in that arrow batch was 366 grains. Now this is not including a 100 grain field tip, but this does add up to a 12 grain difference in what I could have in a batch of arrows at max. So next, I set out to test this. To start this test, I found one of my arrows that was already 462 grains. Then I added weight to make it 469 grains, and then I added more weight to make it 474 grains. And each of these combinations was shot over a chronograph. So you can see that I had a total variation of 12 grains, but I did also have another intermediate data point of right around 6 to 7 grains. So if you look at this data a little bit closer, over that 12 grains of variation, I actually saw only a 2.8 foot per second variation in muzzle velocity. And that's roughly 1.4 feet per second per 6 grains of arrow weight. So this chart is the terminal velocity by yard of these 3 arrows. And what this chart shows is the velocity of these arrows that are 100 yards only has a spread of 2 feet per second. You can also see that the spread is decreasing slightly, and that's due to the fact that heavier arrows slow down slower than faster arrows. And with the velocities at those yardages, you're able to calculate the momentum at each of those yardages also and look at the spread. And from 20 to 150 yards, these 3 arrows only have a difference in spread of 9 thousandths of a slug foot per second. Now, like I've said in past videos, slug feet per second is hard to quantify when it comes to penetration, but 9 thousandths of a slug foot per second cannot be very much. So using those velocities, you can also find the total arrow drop by yard for each of these 3 arrows. And what this table shows is that at 150 yards, there's only a 9-inch difference in arrow drop between these 3 arrows. At 100 yards, there's about a 4-inch difference. And at 80 yards, there's 2.5 inches of difference between these 3 arrows. And then if you break it down at 20 yards, there's only 0.2 inches of difference. That's about 1/4 of an inch. So if we were to break these total arrow drop differences down into what you would see on your sight tape, or between your linear pins, it would show you this table. So at 20 yards, there is not a difference in your setting. At 60 yards, there's 0.013 inches of difference in your setting. And at 150 yards, there's 0.045 inches of difference. So to put these into perspective, a human hair is about 2 thousandths of an inch. And if you guys could see off camera here, you would have seen me pulling one of my pieces of hair out and checking it with a set of calipers. But a human hair is about 2 thousandths of an inch, and a piece of paper is about 3 thousandths of an inch. So at 60 yards, you're seeing a difference of 4 sheets of paper on your sight tape, or 7.5 human hairs. At 100 yards, you're seeing a difference of 9 sheets of paper or 14 hairs, which if you guys have a set of calipers handy and you want to see what this actually looks like, I encourage you to grab your set of calipers and set them to 45 thousandths of an inch. you're gonna see that it's really not that much of a difference. One of the things I started in the last video, which if you haven't seen it, go and watch it, is relating this information to the inches of deer drop. So this table right here relates all of this information to the inches of deer drop by yard. So in this table, you can see that this 3 foot per second of muzzle velocity difference does not even equate to an inch difference of deer drop out at 100 yards. And then at 20 yards, it's not even a quarter of an inch of difference. So very, very minute difference when we're talking 3 foot per second difference out of the exact same arrow, out of the same bow, just at different weights. So with all of that data, I think the best way to wrap this up is to look at the arrow drop total by yard table again. Now, like I said, in this table, you see about a 4-inch difference at 100 yards and about a 2.5-inch difference at 80 yards. And the question I ask myself is, does 2.5 inches at 80 yards actually make a difference in my shooting? Can I shoot better than 2.5 inches at 80 yards? Now, on a normal day, my average shooting, what I shoot most of the time, I can't shoot a 2.5-inch group at 80 yards. Now, the question does arise that with other variables that come into play when shooting a bow, does this 2.5 inches make your group sizes larger than what you could actually handle? Now, this I don't know. I don't know it for you and I don't know it for me. I'm gonna have to do some more testing that I'm gonna hopefully be able to find what other factors are playing into your accuracy or your group size out to these yardages. But for me right now, I don't think that weight sorting arrows is something that I should keep doing. I think one way that I can reduce this spread without weight sorting arrows is to reduce the number of components on my arrow. Now that would reduce the number of variabilities in my total arrow weight, which I believe would help. So if I switch from a ballistic collar and an insert to something like a half out, that would reduce my number of component variability by 1. And as long as I'm buying quality components, this spread would naturally decrease. Now the thing I just said, which is a very good point, is you need to buy quality components. If you're not buying quality components, your weight variation is going to be larger. But with all that being said, I hope you guys now have enough information to make your own decision on whether or not you need to be weight sorting your arrows, or maybe if you need to be switching your components up. And also, if you guys have not been following along in this series, I encourage you to go back and watch the other videos. I also encourage you to keep following along because there's a lot of videos coming up that are very interesting. If you guys have ideas for other videos that you want to see out of all this data, please comment down below. Make sure you're liking this video and subscribing to our channel. This video series took a lot of work and a lot of time, so I appreciate all of your guys' support, and we from the Seasons Media appreciate all of your guys' support. So with that being said, I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. See ya.